Hi, I'm Lori Sharonbrock, and I'm here today with Chris Schucker of Digital Horizons, helping you learn more about home technology and home automation. And so today we're going to talk about home technology kind of in general. But Chris, is a smart home possible on a budget?
Absolutely. Um, so we exist within our customers' budgets. So that might be a little cliche, but we can do all kinds of things and shape the system designs and anything that we're providing to and around the customer's budget. Um, there's kind of a minimum of what we provide, if you will, and so sometimes that fit isn't there, but there's a lot of ways of what we refer to as value engineering in our system designs to accommodate a budget to meet whatever the needs are.
So if I wanted to kind of start dipping my toe into having a smart home where I could know, what my furnace is doing, like while we're traveling, setting that up, knowing from a security perspective what's going on, is there like a basic system that you start with and can start to build from there?
So there's a lot of standalone products that can exist that can give you those little snapshots if you want. Um, Things like if you want to monitor the temperature of your house. I mean, depending on how many different areas of the home you want to monitor, that would be the challenging part. But if you're just looking for the core temperature of the home in a central location, that's as simple as a smart thermostat connected to the home's Wi-Fi network, and that can be $100 device if you want it to be as simple as that. When you get into multiples of those things, like if you wanted to monitor temperature and you wanted to control lights and all of those different things, there are subsystems, what we refer to as subsystems that can exist, that can either operate on their own and would be the lower barrier of entry. Where it gets really fun and powerful is when we can tie those subsystems together into a single interface and not require a homeowner to need 6 or 7 or 8 different apps on their phone to run everything and then keep track of which one does what and all of that fun stuff.
Is there a system you like more than others for that?
So we work with 2 primary home automation companies, one being Control4 and then the other one being Crestron. And we use Control4 for the majority of our systems, just because they have a really nice way of scaling their systems where we can start small with Control4 and then we can grow to almost anything that somebody would want to do over the years. And then it also can scale up initially into very large complex systems. When we use Crestron is on just the biggest of homes, the most complicated systems, because Crestron is a system that is actually limitless in what you can do. It's very powerful. They have a lot of products and technology that they offer in-house that doesn't require coordination with other manufacturers. So it's a very, very powerful system, but it's really reserved to some of the more complicated stuff. And we also have a commercial division to our business, and we use Crestron heavily in that. So audio, video conferencing, boardrooms, things like that, Crestron's a go-to. But for the majority of our systems in a residential environment, Control4 is our go-to.
And what is that system like? I mean, you said it's kind of an elimination of all the remotes. So is it like an iPad or a tablet that the homeowner would use?
See, that's the really cool part about Control4. When we program a Control4 system, regardless of how small or large it is, or however many systems are inside of it, the homeowner can access that system from any device. So Control4 makes what are called interfaces, and the interfaces they have 2 different remotes, and then they have a series of different touch panels that are either tabletop or can be installed on a wall. But if a homeowner doesn't like those or would prefer to not have that physical hardware present, they can use their iPad, they can use an Android device, they can use any tablet, any computer. The interface does look slightly different in terms of the functionality it provides based on the interface that you're using, but it's largely the same. It's just sometimes the buttons are in different places just due to screen size or orientation or something like that. So whenever we install a Control4 system, typically our methodology is if there's a television, we recommend a handheld remote, because when you're leaned back in the chair and you want to be comfortable, it's not conducive to have your phone held up and, tapping the screen. It's nice to have those physical tactile buttons that you know where the volume and where the channel buttons are. But when it comes to adjusting the audio or turning the heat up or looking at cameras or turning lights off, and then regardless of where you're at in the home, then it's common to use your phone or a tablet for those applications.
And is it primarily like a tapping system, or can you voice control them too? Like for example, you said, the tactile with the remote, can it still be done like, hey, volume up, or some kind of voice commands used with it?
Yeah, voice is an emerging technology. We're still kind of cautious around it because it's still not very fluid. Anything that exists in our installs with Control4 or Crestron for that matter, we have the ability to create what are called scenes, or scenes are probably the best way to think of it. Similar to when you hop in your vehicle and you want to listen to KLIZ, you hit 107.5, or you hit an icon that represents that channel and it goes to 107.5, like a preset. So think of scenes in home as a preset. And a preset with a home technology could be when you walk in the home, you want the whole house to play your favorite music station. You want the lights to go to 60%, and you want the shades to raise up, and you want the temperature to go to 70%. That's the most common scenario. Someone wants that preset, and then we tie that to whatever phrase they want to say, and then usually with an Alexa or something like that, it picks up the phrase, and then the Control4 system sees that and executes the scene. It sounds really complicated, but what ends up happening is somebody just needs to paint the picture of what they want done in their home, and then they put that phrase that they want, just say like, Alexa, I'm home, or whatever, and then that function executes. But then we can do literally anything within the system, as simple as adjusting the volume, changing the channel, doing things like that. But there's still some complexities of people keeping track of the phrasing and the verbiage of how to operate those things. That's the barrier. It's not the functionality, it's just the natural nature of the language and how it interprets it. It's getting there. I love voice control, but it's not quite polished enough yet for rapid deployment, but we do quite a bit of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's important for people to make a distinction that having home automation doesn't mean necessarily voice control, or that everything is controlled by voice, that there still is an element of technology, and that or that the voice is an element of that, but you can still not have to have that voice piece involved.
Yeah, it's there for, so the way I like looking at automation, people often think to the Jetsons and all this crazy stuff, but in reality, what automation is doing in our current day and age is saving time. It's a convenience thing. Take lighting, for example. So when we often, the majority of the homes that we work in are 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 square feet, but sometimes we work in very large homes that are 6, 7, 8, 10,000 square feet with what's referred to as a lighting control system, where all of the lights in the home are tied to a single system that can be controlled from anywhere in the home. The task of going downstairs to turn the lights off is monumental. So with a lighting control system, you can have a single button at the top of the staircase that just says basement off. And you hit that one button and your 40 circuits of lights downstairs through all of the rooms, they just turn off. Same thing with outside lights. Who wants to go around and turn on every single outside light? We just tie that to an astronomical timer that tracks daylight savings time, and they turn on 1 hour before sunset and turn off at 11 p.m. or 12 a.m. or whatever. So it really becomes a function of saving time, and that's our preferred way of looking at it. Convenience.
And I think that's one of the advantages of working with you at Digital Horizons, because I think sometimes we think about home automation and how trendy or how cool it is, and we have it just to have it. But there's a lot of thought that has to go in to making a system that, like you say, is efficient to work for that, and working with a professional, I think is really important in that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it obviously depends on what somebody is looking to incorporate into their home, but there's a lot of aspects, especially in new construction, that need to be taken into account that we can provide insight on.
Yeah, you're right. In thinking of having cameras in your house, I mean, that is something that you would want to know because that might change the build, right?
Yeah, of course. Well, and if you think of wanting cameras initially, cameras specifically in this case, it's like with anything that we do, it's almost always better to do something that's wired, like has a physical wire going to it. There are cameras that exist that are Wi-Fi based that have batteries built in, but we all know how good Wi-Fi can be. We all know how good and long batteries last, and then add into the elements of 20 or 30 below winters. And there's so many better options for a more reliable product for what really doesn't cost a whole lot more, especially in a new construction scenario, that if you don't think of these things, then you end up with a vastly inferior solution.
Yeah, and one that probably ends up costing you more in the end, right? It's one of those things we don't think about. A camera with batteries is, maybe cheaper on the upfront, but their long-term maintenance costs are far worse than if you had, like you said, something fully integrated with the
Mm-hmm.
home. So what is your favorite piece of home technology? Like, what's the one thing you think that if a home is going to be smart, what should we have?
So there's kind of two parts there, right? So when I got into this business, my start into it was from a hobby perspective. I actually worked at a Best Buy for about a year in the home theater department 15, 16, 17 years ago. I didn't last there long, but I got my feet wet more in the business from really enjoying audio and surround sound. So audio is a big passion of mine, and I feel having properly installed distributed audio, speakers in the ceiling, in the walls, which by the way can be invisible. They can be built into the walls and completely disguised, so they're not even seen. Having audio built in so that it's treated like light, where there's even coverage, you don't notice transitions between rooms, and it becomes a part of the house. I really like that. That's been something that I'll probably never lose the passion for. But actually recently in the last 3 to 4 years, we started doing a lot of motorized window treatments, shades, and lighting control became a very, very big part of our offerings. It was driven solely by customer demand. And I think motorized window treatments, like motorized shades, when they're done correctly, are such an amazing piece of a home, that it's one of those things when people have it installed in their house, they have a hard time understanding how they didn't have it before. And the most common application for it is take a home on a lake. People want privacy. I mean, right? So
Yes.
when you have, I mean, shades on the lake side of the house are given, but if you have a decent sized home, you can have 10 or 15 or 20 individual shades on the lake. Who wants to go through and raise and lower those multiple times every day? So getting back to the convenience and time thing, motorized shades can be that immense time saver where you can walk into a room and press one button and 15 shades raise automatically to reveal the lake. And then at night you press another button and the shades go down and you have your privacy. And so what could be a 10 or 15 minute thing to raise the shades twice a day becomes a 5-second thing. And then who doesn't love wowing their neighbors when they can show them all their shades going up and down? So I'd say from a personal standpoint, it's the audio, but then just what I see people enjoy the most out of what we do is lighting control and shades, definitely.
And so if money were no object, is that what you would put in your house, or like
Probably.
what technology would you do?
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah, I have a little bit of everything that we do in our house, in my house. But yeah, if I were to build a new house, it would undoubtedly be, I'd have full lighting control, full motorized shades. Those are the things that I think have the biggest impact on somebody's day-to-day out of everything that we do. And of
And
course,
so,
really good Wi-Fi.
yes, isn't that it? I mean, I think in this day and age, we've really learned that not all Wi-Fi is created equal, and that I don't know if anybody ever knew the word router before the last year and what any of
Right.
that meant.
Yep.
Why is that so critical? Why is that Wi-Fi piece so important?
Well, from our perspective, the network, we look at it as infrastructure in a home. We similar to our view on home security systems and the improper nomenclature for that, we feel it should be referred to as something else that more accurately represents how it's used in a home. We look at networking that it should be treated just like electrical, it should be treated just like plumbing, it should be looked at just like HVAC and air handling in the home. It is an absolute requirement in a home in today's day and age. And so often people build a house, small or large. It's worse when it's large, obviously. And they think, well, we'll just put the modem and the router and the Wi-Fi router in the mechanical room and we'll cross our fingers and hope it works. And it's just not the way to do it. I mean, when you're trying to connect to a device through 7 walls and mechanical ducting and everything else, it's just a bad way to do it. So when we set up a network, we approach it from a business or a commercial aspect where we utilize the modem that's provided by the service provider, and then we provide everything beyond that. So the router, potential network switches if there's lots of connections needed, and then the critical part is we use what are referred to as wireless access points. And the naming is a little bit off because they're not wireless, so I hate that, but that's what the terminology is. But the wireless access points get placed throughout the home and they provide direct Wi-Fi coverage of that area. So when you're using your wireless only device like your phone or your tablet that don't have physical network ports, those devices are connecting directly to a wireless access point that is then hardwired to the network, and we hate repeaters, right? Repeaters are awful. They use the same radios often to transmit and receive signals, and they shouldn't be used except for like last resort scenarios, and even then they shouldn't be used. So we place these wireless access points throughout the home, and usually they're good for about 1,000 to 1,500 square feet, depending on the home's coverage. And we just blanket the home in good Wi-Fi, and it's the only way to do it. I mean, there's a reason businesses and education, those types of entities use this type of design, and we apply that to a home, and it's amazing. Like the network and the wireless coverage that our systems have is unmatched.
Yeah. So I imagine that, there needs to be some protection around that. Is there sort of like a built-in, we hear about, oh, they can hack your Wi-Fi or they can hack this or hack that. Is there some kind of security built into that?
Well, the products that we use are a commercial product, essentially. So they're using the latest encryption methods. I think with any network, I think it's been shown that if somebody is dedicated enough to get in, they can get in. But the off the shelf or over the counter methods that you might otherwise be able to use for a network, that they don't work, for intrusion. But yeah, I mean, your standard firewall and things like that, that's kind of standard operating procedure. But then when we set up our networks and provide remote access to the systems, we have, standard security protocols so that we're not creating vulnerabilities in the system. One of the aspects of Control4 that we like a lot is when somebody accesses their Control4 home automation system, nobody's directly connecting to the system from their phone when they're away. Control4 routes all of the information through their servers through a private secured VPN. And it's a service they charge for because it is a secured method, and it costs money to maintain and operate that. But that's the secure way of doing it. So when we're setting up the networks, we're not creating vulnerabilities, and we choose products that limit access when it otherwise might be a vulnerability.
And are there products, you know, when we're purchasing that or looking at that, are there like gadgets we should avoid, or scams, or like companies that use like overt language, but the product isn't good? Like, are there things to avoid when going into home technology?
It's actually kind of a hard question to answer, because I have a very skewed perspective of things.
Sure.
So in our line of work, we have to be very wary of what we work with, because it's our name that we're attaching to what we install. When we install a system, rarely do people ask what brands we work with.
Sure.
Nobody asks rarely do people ask what speakers do we offer, what amplifiers we use, what networking equipment we use, what shade brands, you know, all of that. People will often ask like TVs, but we're a Sony dealer, and you know, people usually are pretty good with Sony because they're an established brand. They're, you know, currently they're the leader in display technology, so that's great. Not always are they, but that's fine. But because of that, nobody comes to us for the brands that we use. They come to us for the systems that we install. No different than when somebody buys a Ford or a Chevy truck. They don't ask what brake pads are in there, where they got the piston heads, who provided the airbag, what, you know, all of those things. They're buying a Ford truck. And so when they come to us, they're buying a Digital Horizons system. So we have to filter out a lot of the stuff that we don't want to attach our name to. And unfortunately, that ends up being a lot of what we refer to as do-it-yourself stuff. The stuff that you see in big box stores are usually things that we don't use. And not because that they're bad, or that they're bad products, or they're from bad manufacturers. Some of the manufacturers might have different intents than people understand as far as like data collection and things like that, which is something obviously to be mindful of. But do-it-yourself products are made for a very broad and wide audience. They're made to be used by everybody, but not everybody has the same scenario or the same use case. Not everybody wants the same functionality. Sometimes there's, you know, features and functionality and little tweaks and things that you need something to do. But when you're making a product to meet the audience of hundreds of thousands or millions of people, those things have to be eliminated to accommodate everybody. So the products that we use are often they can be fine-tuned, they can be calibrated. There's lots of things that they give us the functionality to do. So it's a hard question to answer, because there's so many products out there that we just don't want to be associated with because they don't meet our requirements. But in general, what I would say is, if you're setting your home up with some sort of technology, if the brand hasn't been around for a decade or 5 years, just stay away from it. It's not hard for electronic companies now to engineer a product and put something on an e-commerce website, be it Amazon or eBay or wherever, and promise a lot of stuff and just have no repercussions if they fail to deliver, because it's not hard to do branding and do online marketing to make a product stand out. So just be mindful of the Kickstarter miracle products. Be mindful of the overseas brand names that you can't pronounce and have never heard of. You know, if you're looking at doing things yourself, just work within what's available from established manufacturers, and just be mindful of the overnight sensations, because we have seen countless horror stories of products that get released and they promise the world, and they either don't come to fruition and they take your money through a Kickstarter campaign, or they don't last, and yeah, so that would be my recommendation.
I mean, and I imagine that's one of the best benefits of working with you and Digital Horizons, is being able to go through sort of that checklist of features and benefits to say, what are you looking to do? And then be able to build the best system around that, versus picking up a box and reading the bullet points on the back and going, I think that might work. Yeah. And so, how does a homeowner, you know, really start to work with you? What's the best way to get started?
Just contact us and as early as possible. I mean, most of the work that we do is in existing homes. We have two divisions. We have a commercial and a residential division, and in the residential division, it varies year by how many new construction projects we're involved in, because the housing market varies year to year. Of course, there's trends and whatnot, but overall, the majority of the work that we do is in existing homes, either adding technology to an existing home with no construction involved, or some sort of remodel to varying degrees. And then the rest is new construction. So the earlier we can be brought in whatever you're doing, the better, because our insight can be anywhere from absolutely necessary to just extremely helpful, depending on what somebody is trying to incorporate into their home.
Yeah, and I've found that even just sitting and talking with you, I learn so much in just a short amount of time, and that I think is a key piece too, is just learning to educate yourself and finding those good sources of information to get started, right?
Yeah, so we blend a mix of providing solutions that a customer wants to utilize in their home, but then it's stuff that we have to understand and support and stand behind. So we just need to talk to people and figure out what they want to do, and then we take it from there.
Awesome. So if someone wanted to get a hold of you, what's the best way to find you, Chris, and Digital Horizons?
So our website is digitalhorizonsmn.com, MN for Minnesota, or you're welcome to call us Monday through Friday, 218-330-4140, or we're online everywhere. So if you find us on Facebook or anywhere else, don't hesitate to reach out. We're happy to talk to people. And
I've seen it myself, so I can say you have a pretty awesome experience center. Is that, something fun for people to do?
Yeah, it's become a really valuable resource for us, because it acts as a testing bed for things, but then it allows people to put their hands on the technology that we offer and see what it does firsthand, because a lot of it is smoke and mirrors to people. They don't understand how it works or what it does. And when they come in here and they can actually see what lighting control is, what motorized shades do, what they look like, and how we incorporate audio, and we have a really cool hidden TV in our kitchen, and all of these things, like just being able to see it firsthand and being in the room with it it's so critical.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. I encourage anyone to give you guys a call, visit your website, and make sure you get a chance to check out that experience center. So thank you so much, Chris.
Thanks, Lori.